Do you remember early on in COVID when the Queen's Gambit was released and everyone for about 2 weeks was convinced they could play chess? Yeah, that was a funny time. The series starred Anya Taylor-Joy and is based on a book of the same name that was released in 1983, written by Walter Tevis. The series received 6-episode order in March 2019, but when it was released it was given an additional episode up to 7, with the cast only being announced when a premiere date was set. Anya got an early announcement along with people who had no interest in chess, wondering why this was even going to get, created in the first place, until it became the most viewed series in a single day on October 28th. This was a remarkable development, especially considering the fact that chess is quite a niche sport. I still don't remember how to play it. I've been taught a few times, and if you tell me, I'll remember. Until I don't. And I think Netflix managed to produce a masterpiece of a period piece and limited series that even has rewatchability for people over time. I would imagine though that everyone will skip I'm pretty sure it's the first episode, maybe the first 2, where she's just a little girl. So it is a fictional narrative about a young orphan named Elizabeth Harmon, who, following the death of her mother and no father around, ends up being taken into a home for girls, and she spends around 7 years there. The story follows her from the age of 8 until she turns 22 and shows how she goes from someone who is stuck in an all-girls home for orphans to becoming one of the best chess players in the world, and her addictions and vices along the way. As the show moves through various stages of Beth's life quite quickly, the cast dip in and out of the story depending on where the location of the shoot is taking place. And to be fair, the only one who really, if you're watching the show and you're rewatching it and you've watched it a second time, a third time, you're watching it just for the performance from Anya Taylor-Joy the whole time. That she's vital to the development of this as a show and for the masterpiece that it became at the time. She took on the role from episode 2 onwards, and while it is difficult to view her as the 14, 15, 16-year-old as earlier on in the episodes, given the fact that she was 24, I would have, if I had to give her an age younger than what she was, I probably would have said 17, 18, 19. But it's just the way that, of course, Hollywood works. It's difficult. Her features are something that can't be really adjusted by the production team to make her look younger. So to be fair, she is just one of those people who I think will always look that a little bit older. And I can't think of anyone else who would have been able to portray the role as well as she did. She had to portray a different person throughout the narrative, no matter what episode we were in, because the evolution of Beth from start to finish was, for lack of a better word, extraordinary. We could see the effect that learning chess had on her and the way that it went on to become such a big part of her life. We're able to see her eyes narrow and focus when she's beginning to take control of a game, while her whole body reacts in just sheer frustration when someone begins to take the game out of her favour. That chess basically needed to be engaging for all of the viewers for us to become interested in it in a way that would be sustainable and long-term benefiting for a show like this. And they managed to do this, and some of the best moments from this series come from when Anya just stares down the camera, and when she's thinking through a move or focusing on the chessboard and thinking about what's going to come next. The difference in everything, the minute that you go from someone who is just kind of, they're aware the camera is there but they're not paying attention to it, to just staring down it, was evident pretty much straight away. If you were to watch the show and didn't believe that Beth was an alcoholic or a drug abuser, then a lot of the story is going to mean less and less to you as it goes through. So we really needed to get sold on those elements of the story. And we come on to learn the role of her mother, and that gets disclosed in the final episode. It gave an insight into the mind of Beth, and the way that she was consistently pushing her mind and creating different habits was able to demonstrate to us how the effect of things we don't even know about consciously can, change the way that we view pretty much all of our surroundings, or how things change in our lives. The show is beautiful to look at, and I do feel very comfortable to call it a period piece, as we spent time in the 1950s and the 1960s, and the cinematographers did an outstanding job of placing us in that time period every time that it was required. we did feel plucked from our daily existence and placed where Beth is. The effects and use of the camera to engage the viewer and pull them into the scenes was done expertly. There were a couple of scenes stick out in memory that happened throughout the series, and they were placed kind of in the beginning, the middle and the end. Like, we can see the effect that chess had on Beth's mind when she's had to look up to the ceiling and begin visualising the chess pieces moving. And the way that this was shot and demonstrated to the audience was quite powerful, but also demonstrated how intellectual this young girl really was. We're able to see that she begins to believe her capability of doing this is only possible when she is not sober. So there is a moment where she manages to do it when she is sober, and her reaction becomes very visceral and has an effect on the viewer as well, and makes us quite emotional to see it. Then while it may not really fall under the idea of visuals the way that one would think it, but the scenes where we get to see her play multiple games of chess at once it's just a sight to behold, to be honest. And if I saw someone doing it in real life and they were doing well, like there is that the meme from The Simpsons where Bart is doing it and he's playing 4 or 5 games at once, but he's losing them all terribly. But at least here Beth was winning, and if we saw someone do that in real life who was also winning, I don't think there's any doubt that we would be encapsulated by their abilities. The soundtrack to this series is quite somber as a whole. You're unlikely to really notice the backing tracks until it hits a peak in each scene. And it does demonstrate though how important music can be to tell a story. The swell and the lull in between pieces is what can tell an audience member what they should be feeling at any point in time. It was in the final episode against Borgoff when we have the music hit the views and the cinematography strike perfectly, that we're able to feel things that we probably have been missing in the previous 6 episodes. The sudden intensity, excitement and sheer desire from Beth's eyes in this game, it could all be felt thanks to the visuals and the music. And when the music just thumps and hits your eardrums, you really become involved more than what you probably had originally. The biggest compliment this show can be paid by any viewer or anyone who's seen it before when they're trying to recommend it to someone is, even if you've no idea what chess is, if you can get through the first episode, if you watch the first 2 and you're not interested in it, fair enough, but I find it very hard to believe someone could go through the first 2 episodes and not be intrigued as to the situation that the show provides and everything that comes along with that. And to be fair, I haven't rewatched it since, but it is definitely something that is consistently in the back of my mind when I'm going through Netflix trying to think of something to throw on. It is always a strong contender, which is, in my mind, a mark of a great show.